in Memphis, drinking coffee out of a people loving Nashville. That's a great organization. We just went up there a couple of weeks ago with our friend Mary and Kelly and John. Just awesome people up there. Rob Browne in Memphis, Brendan Martin in Ocala, Florida.
I'm not in my studio. I can't find my coffee. I don't know what's going on this morning.
He's lost.
I have the backup headphones. It's my daughter's. They don't even fit me right. I don't know what the hell's going on. Everything's just blown up in my studio. So we'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll get through there. We got 4 engines, but we got a great one today.
We got one.
That's right, one. And we're one good one. We got Matt Moscona joining us from ESPN Baton Rouge. You got to love it. And he also does a great show, After Further Review, syndicated all over the great state of Louisiana. I got told Matt works harder than 3 dozen Mennonite farmers, putting out work, not just on LSU, the SEC, but college football and sports all over the place. And you've got to follow him. Frank Duffy checks in. He's also in Baton Rouge. Doug Dean in Birmingham. Ken Capps will check in about 25, 28 after to preview the Texas-Georgia game. And we'll just do a lot in the next hour. Remember, take a picture with your phone of the QR code. We're broadcasting simultaneously on 8 channels of Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Share us and like us. That means more than you'll ever know. And so
I'm predicting your voice now. I got you. I've been working with you so long. I'm in your head. Hey, let's get to it, Mr. Matt Moscona, and Doug Dean and Frank Duffy and everyone's here. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Happy Friday.
Yeah, and Matt, look, I'm so glad you took time to join us. We can keep you till about 25 after. You got a big day ahead of you. You cover LSU. There's a lot going on down there. I love what you have to say. You're a truth broker. I call you that. Roman Harper, different people. Does the dress make me look fat? Hell yeah. You tell it like it is. Let's talk about what's happening with LSU and where you think they're going. It's obviously one of the greatest jobs in college football. You know better than I.
Yeah, I think everyone asks, I get asked that a dozen times a day, maybe more than that, who's going to be the LSU coach. And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know who's going to be the coach. What I think I do know at this point is there's a very healthy interest in Lane Kiffin, and I'd probably even put him at the top of LSU's list. And I think it's also fair to say that 4 years ago, Lane Kiffin would have crawled over broken glass to get to Baton Rouge. But they didn't interview him 4 years ago. There wasn't interest, which goes to show you how much the college football landscape has changed over these 4 years. But Kiffin's complex because there's apparently a lot of interest from Florida. You even hear whispers about the NFL, maybe a reunion with Jackson Dart and the New York Giants. Yeah. And there's always the possibility he could stay at Ole Miss because in this era, I mean, Indiana and Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech have been in the top 10 this year. You can win at Ole Miss, and I think he's truly happy there. So that's where I think they start. Is they start with Kiffin. Where they go after that, if they can't get that deal done, I think becomes way more cloudy.
Yeah. An LSU job in this century, 3 different coaches. We know it. Nick Saban, of course. Les Miles, Ed Orgeron won national championships. There was a lot of hope with Brian Kelly. Where and when, how early did you see that thing going off the tracks?
I didn't. Wow. Brian Kelly at the time LSU hired him was the most successful coach they've ever hired in football at the time. Now, Nick Saban obviously is the greatest coach in the history of the sport, but at the time, Nick Saban had 1 9-win season at Michigan State. I mean, Brian Kelly's the winningest active coach in football. So you look and say exactly what you just said, Rob. I mean, 3 coaches won titles, and 2 of them were Les Miles and Ed Orgeron. I mean, you give Brian Kelly these resources, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I think what we saw transpire over these last 4 years, remember when Brian Kelly was hired, NIL was only about 4 months old at that, 4 or 5 months old at that point. Mm. And over his time in Baton Rouge, that continued to evolve to what became pay for play, the commonality of collectives and the role they played, and then continuing new legislation, now revenue share. And I listened to every word Brian Kelly said to a microphone for 4 years. And I have a really good sense of who he is as a coach and how he wants to build a program. And he said over and over, that he wanted to build and develop through the high school ranks, recruit and develop, and then supplement in the transfer portal. And ultimately, the rosters that he had early on just weren't good enough on both sides of the ball to win championships. They got great on offense with Jay Daniels in 2023, but the defense was awful. And in 2024, they just weren't talented enough to beat the better teams on their schedule. And so this year they made a full-on pivot. They a 180 and went all in the transfer portal, had the number one portal class, spent $20 million on this roster. And they just didn't manage it well. And they I think misstepped with the OC hire with Joe Sloan. That's apparent now. And he had some misfortune, but I just think Brian Kelly is a great coach from a different era, like Nick Saban or Dabo Swinney or Mike Gundy or any of these coaches that are struggling to figure out how to win in this era.
Yeah. Frank?
I totally agree with you, Matt. And I think also his hires at DC and OC did not help him at all in that process. Obviously, he's been penalized for that. What do you see as far as the contract work? Obviously, the lawsuit has now just been put in by Kelly and his attorneys for all $54 million. We've all heard the rumors here in Baton Rouge. We haven't discussed them on air again, for decorum. But do you think there's any way possible that they get him for cause, or is this something that it's best just to pay him, get as little as you can to pay out, and move on, so that we're not the embarrassment that we seem to have been the last 18 days, the governor getting involved? Is there a way to extricate ourselves from this quickly and quietly so that we can move on with the search and get on with LSU football?
Yeah, so the lawsuit that Brian Kelly's attorneys filed, there's verbiage in there that mentions discussions with the LSU brass where a for-cause firing was mentioned. So there wasn't a formal for-cause firing, and LSU hasn't done that. What Brian Kelly's legal team did was very quickly file that lawsuit after those conversations, sort of as a preemptive strike. And what I think we have here is just a high leverage game of chicken. I think LSU doesn't want to pay $54 million. I get it. They floated out the possibility. I'm speculating here, but this is my very, very educated guess as to what happened. They floated out the possibility of a for-cause firing to try to strong arm Brian Kelly's team into settling for a lower number. And they said, "Oh, we'll show you. We're showing you for the full 54. Go ahead, put all the dirty laundry out there." But to the point, that just makes everything messy. And the question everyone asks, and rightfully so, is how do you then go hire a new coach if you treat Brian Kelly poorly in this situation? When you signed him to that contract, what you're telling every agent and every coach is those contracts, you don't view those contracts as worth the paper they're printed on if you're not going to honor the terms of the deal. LSU owes Brian Kelly $54 million. And if they can reach an agreeable settlement to where both sides can move on, great. But if Brian Kelly wants to kick up his feet and not work ever again, LSU's going to pay him $54 million over the next 6 years.
Doug?
Moscona, first of all, your compadre Duff will tell you, if I admire somebody's work on air, they get last name. And you are sensational on air. But I want to ask, who are you and what did you do with this Moscona on our show? Bama's burning. That is comedic genius. And I mean, it blew up the internet. And I'm not throwing shade at my good Bama friends. I think every program in the SEC that's serious about football should have a Matt Moscona doing stuff like that to keep this fun. But then there's the serious, cerebral Matt Moscona. I think whatever you're making, Matt, you need to renegotiate, speaking of buyouts and compensation, with your sponsors. More seriously, this really isn't that serious, but it could end up being. If LSU reels in Lane Kiffin, who, by the way, when did we get to this place where Lane Kiffin sounds like a risk-free hire? Look at his body of work, whether it's on the field or off the field. And I'm glad to see Lane, who he is now apparently at Ole Miss, and heaven knows he's increased their baseline. My fun question is, if LSU reels in Lane Kiffin, does Whit Weeks go on the LSU Mount Rushmore? You're not going to
wow.
That is so. First of all, I think all of the Weeks brothers are pretty awesome. That's a great family.
Great kids.
And it's cool. I think seeing the respect that Lane showed to Witt dating his daughter, which is
No doubt.
what a what a moment to go public, right? I mean, the week of the LSU Ole Miss game with their relationship, but even I don't know if y'all saw this, but Witt and Landry a few weeks ago were at actually the shirt I'm wearing. This is Our Lady of the Lake, which is they're a great sponsor of LSU and a great sponsor of mine as well. Landry and Witt were at the Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital a few weeks ago together. Doing meet and greets with a lot of the kid. Didn't tell anybody. It wasn't a big media thing. The lake had just taken a few photos and put them out there. Landry and Witt didn't put anything out there, but they both seem, I don't know anything about their relationship, but they seem like good young people who are in love, and that's a great thing, and that's for their great families and all, which is cool. I don't know. Maybe that's an enticement to get Witt to come back for a senior year and bring Lane down here and coach his future son-in-law. Maybe.
Let me kind of add a little more
Sure.
seriously do refer to, and that is, I've told Duff many times, if I ever am exiled from the Auburn fan base, I will apply immediately in Baton Rouge. I don't know if they would have me. I would advise them against it, but I just love that fan base and program and history. I'm jealous of owning a state when it comes to recruiting, but it's as if fans, Florida, Auburn, LSU, and I'm sure others like Penn State, get mad at one candidate whose name gets mentioned, and they've got their can't miss candidate. There is no such thing. Do your homework, you look at fit, and I think an underrated element is what coordinators, what staff is your hire going to put together, because that will tell you a lot about what the upside may be. Your thoughts on managing the risk, and you've got LSU's got its 1A and 2A candidates. Do you think the fan base is on board with, no matter who you hire? If Brian Kelly didn't teach us anything else, he looked like can't miss hire if ever there was one.
Right. That's the lesson, right? The cycle LSU went through in 2016. They were far down the road with Tom Herman, who was the hot name everybody wanted. They had an agreement in principle. If y'all remember, LSU's playing Texas A&M on Thanksgiving night, and across the scroll, across the bottom, was that LSU was going to hire Tom Herman.
Yeah, I remember.
That basically was, a preemptive warning to Texas to say, hey, if you want in, you better go ahead and fire Charlie Strong. They did. Herman wanted to talk to Texas, and so Joe Oliva panicked and just ran Ed Ogeron up to the podium. And Ed Ogeron was largely a disaster, but also coached the greatest team in the history of college football.
Yeah.
So, I think you're right. The Brian Kelly, this Brian Kelly experience, it's changed my opinion on a coaching hire for certain. I've always looked at this. This is the fourth time I've covered one of these at LSU, that I've always looked at it and said, man, you're LSU, minimize risk. You've won championships. You have resources. Right. The exact point that I was making about you're the only Power 5 in a talent-rich state. I mean, LSU and Ohio State are the only two that can claim that. So there's no reason to take a big risk. Well, now I think it's completely different. In this era, you have to have someone who can win in this era, can manage NIL portal, embraces all of that. I mean, look around. Oregon hired Dan Lanning, first-time head coach. Georgia hired Kirby Smart, first-time head coach. Ohio State hired Ryan Day, first-time head coach. You just look around college football and you can realize it doesn't necessarily take the guy that's been a successful head coach at multiple stops to be able to do it. They just have to be able to function within this era. Now, one thing I would love to see is someone who really has expertise on one side of the ball. I think that's the intrigue about Kiffin, right? No matter where Lane Kiffin goes, his offenses are always going to be good. Yeah. So can he hire a good defensive coordinator to manage the other side of the ball? Yeah. That's what I think LSU missed here with Kelly. Certainly didn't have it with Ed Ogeron or Les Miles. A lot of them were dependent upon hiring really good coordinators. And you minimize some of that risk if you hire a head coach that, look at Brent Venables at Oklahoma, who's always going to have one side of the ball covered.
And the risk is a one-sided team, and we had to endure that at LSU when we had Matt House and we had an incredible offense. and didn't go anywhere, and when we had a good defense under Brett Baker and still didn't have the offense. You can't be one-sided in college football right now. Can't be done.
Yeah. Matt, here's a question. Here's a coach that nobody's talking about, an established head coach who had success at a school that's not easy to win at. That's Dave Clawson, who was at Wake Forest for a long time, currently sitting on a chair on the ACC network. I think somebody ought to consider him to come in. But you mentioned LSU. I'm with Doug Dean. My great-great-grandfather was the first Episcopal bishop in that state and lived in Thibodeau for 20 years. I love their fan base. My dad was 3 weeks away from walking on in football. A spot in architecture at Auburn opened up. But your fans are incredible, and you got the greatest food in the world. You've got the greatest job, perhaps, in the world, getting to do what you do every day. But what about Clawson or some of these guys that are out right now that got frustrated that could be enticed to come back in?
So I haven't heard Dave Clawson's name, and I would just sort of operate under the principles of what I feel like I know. And look, if you go back 4 years and you look at those betting odds on who was going to be the next LSU coach, Brian Kelly's name wasn't on any of the lists.
Yeah,
so
out of the blue.
There's always that possibility that there's someone they're having a conversation with. I don't know that Clawson is that guy. The one that I think kind of along that vein that's maybe interesting is Dan Mullen. Now Mullen's coaching at UNLV, but he had been out for three years. And you know, Dan Mullen undeniably raised the floor at Mississippi State. You know, they never had a bottoming out like they've had with Sylvester Croom or what they had with Jeff Lebby going 0-8 last year. I mean, you're losing, what is it, 17 of 18 league games. I mean, they just, Mike Leach raised the floor at Mississippi State as well. But, Mullen, the knock on him was always that he didn't want to recruit. Well, recruiting now is done with a checkbook. It's just so different. Yeah, I have someone who can coach ball and can lean on their front office and their GM to help them build a roster. And I think that's one that would be really intriguing because Dan Mullen is undeniably a brilliant offensive coach and a really good game call. I mean, I've had enough conversations with SEC coaches over the years that rave about his ability to scheme, to game plan, and to call in game. And I mean, considering the struggles LSU had offensively this year, I think that would be really appealing to hire someone with a really strong offensive background like that. I don't know that Dan Mullen's going to be the guy, but I think that's one that would be intriguing.
Matt, let's talk about SEC permanent opponents. Duff and I agree on one thing. By the way, I smiled to see that, although I don't look forward to the challenge for Auburn when LSU comes to, I think it's in Jordan-Hare in a year. But Duff and I agree that if only for the craziness and wacky things that happened in the Auburn LSU series, that was a consideration to keep that permanent. We probably shouldn't lament too much in the sense that every 2 or 3 years you get to play everybody anyway. But did it surprise you? I guess you on paper you consider Arkansas, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M more manageable than, at least in modern era, Auburn, Alabama, and maybe A&M. That would be brutal. So what does the fan base feel about permanent opponents, or is it not particularly an issue?
Depends who you ask. Because the thing about LSU, and it's an oddity, but it's a school that doesn't have a geographic rival, and the traditional rivals have really been generational. So if you go talk to my grandfather, he would talk about Johnny Vaught and Ole Miss in the 50s and the 60s. My dad would tell you about Bear Bryant in the 70s. For me, like, I was born in 82. So my favorite memories coming up watching LSU were bring back the Magic in 95 against Auburn, the barn burner, Cecil Collins, the cigar game. I mean, the LSU-Auburn series is my favorite LSU rivalry.
That's great to hear.
The morning guys on our station are Jacob Hester and Matt Flynn. They played at LSU in the era where LSU-Florida was the biggest game in college football. So they are loathing every day the fact that LSU and Florida aren't going to play every year.
Yeah.
So it really just depends who you ask. And realistically, the way that the league, whether they were going to say it or not, the way that they sort of broke it down is you look at the last 2 decades, the top half of the league was going to play 2 against the top half and 1 against the bottom, and then you'd invert it. The bottom half of the league would play 2 against the bottom, 1 against the top. And you knew there were some rivalries that were going to be preserved, like Bama and Tennessee, Bama, Auburn, Georgia, Florida. Like, so, the Egg Bowl, all of that was always going to happen. So you start by filling out the ones that you know were going to happen. It left LSU in really a complicated place because you don't have any games that you take a Sharpie and you say, okay, this LSU game has got to happen. But the one that surprised the most people, I think, was LSU Alabama not being an annual rivalry. But it's not surprising considering Bama is going to play Auburn and Tennessee. Like, those were non-negotiables. And you weren't going to saddle Bama with Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU. It would be the most brutal schedule. I mean, look, I wouldn't have been crying for Alabama, but I'm also not sad that LSU don't have to play them every year. So I think it's just what it is. Most people, though, I know where I fall is I just want to see good games. I don't care. Like, I am deeply disinterested. Cover your ears, Doug. I'm deeply disinterested in Auburn, Georgia. I don't give a rip if those two teams ever play again. I know they care. But I'm just as interested in Georgia, Texas this weekend. I'm more interested in Georgia, Texas this weekend than I am in Georgia, Auburn. Like, just give me good football games. And moving away from garbage guarantee games that nobody wants to see, that are nothing but a money grab and a gate receipt and inflated win totals. Like, who are we kidding? Let's get to real competitive games that everybody wants to see, and let's have a real playoff. Let's go to 14 or 16 and then ultimately get to 32 and actually have a playoff like every other sport in the history of the world. Like, we're going to get there, and it's going to be awesome when we're there because we're going to get to watch better games of the greatest sport in the world that we all love so much, instead of pretending like 10 wins at Missouri is a big deal when they load up with 4 garbage non-conference games, go 5-3, lose to their only ranked teams, and then beat a bowl game. Win a bowl game against a team with a bunch of opt-outs. 10 wins. Who cares? Yeah. It's inflated garbage. Like,
you're asking for NFL light. It's going to be NFL light, and I'm all for it.
Good. Yes. Definitely. Let's watch competitive games every week.
Yeah.
You know what the narrative really is Eli's 0-6 the last 2 years against ranked SEC opponents. And all these people are getting giddy about these coaches. James Franklin at Penn State, his record is horrible against top 5, top 10 teams. Matt Rule, even worse. People think, but if you put them at this school with these resources, it doesn't work that way. Okay, Texas Tech, are they spending the most money of anybody on NIL this year? So that's guaranteed they're going to win the national championship, isn't it, Matt? Guaranteed.
Well, what I do love is your commitment to winning gives you an opportunity. Yeah. I'm excited that SMU made the playoff in year 1. That Texas Tech can be in it, that Indiana can be it, because everyone has a shot. Like, let's get real, guys. Before this era, when you teed it up and kicked it off in week 1, there were a handful of teams, 5 or 6, that had a shot to win a national championship. That's it. Now, would anybody on this call be surprised if Indiana got a good draw and won the national championship? I watched them go to Oregon and beat a really good Oregon team in a game. By the way, that wasn't that close. Oregon got a crazy pick 6 late that made it look closer than it was. Indiana could beat anybody in the country, which you couldn't say that 3-4 years ago. I mean, Vanderbilt, a legit top 10 team, they've been a laughingstock for a century. If you're willing to invest, you can win, which makes it more interesting because everybody now can be engaged for longer. It's a great time in college football.
Pay for pay, NIL, and transfer portal has even the playing field. If you're willing to put your chips on the table, you can play in the big game.
Didn't see it coming, but Matt, LSU, we can't even count out Ole Miss, can we?
No, of course Ole Miss can win it. But and by the way, it's not a guarantee because LSU just went and spent $20 million on this roster and they fired their coach and they're staring down a 6-6 or 7-5 season.
And we don't have pulling guards.
Matt, I'm sure you've met Lee Fitting, executive producer of ESPN Sports, who famously said 5 or 6 years ago, as we expand this playoff in November, you're going to have people down in the South, in Enterprise, Alabama, and down in Metairie, Louisiana, and Lowndes County, Georgia, talking about games on the West Coast and in the Big Ten. I'm a populist for college football. You know, I'm an Auburn grad, but I love this conference. We cover all 16 teams. I think it's exciting, and you're right. I've never seen anything. Here it is, mid-November, and we've got duck season starts in 192 hours and 7 minutes and 12 seconds and 3 seconds. Okay, we're ready for that. But we're still watching all this stuff, man. I mean, I got a bunch of LSU guys from Lake Charles in our club. Lord, beef tongue gravy with mock chew, whatever. We eat some stuff you've never heard of. but we're interested in it right now, Matt. Before you go, kind of dovetail off of that and what Doug and Frank have said, it's got everybody watching.
I think the more we move away from what's going to happen next week, which is an embarrassment in the SEC when you have a schedule loaded up with a bunch of FCS opponents and garbage before you play the rivalry weekend, just think about how amazing it would be, like, to have league games in those weekends that actually matter. And I know the counter argument, guys, is, well, you're ruining the sacred regular season in college football. And my argument has always been that is a farce. College football actually has the most meaningless regular season in sports, because college football is the only sport in the history of mankind. I mean, go back to like the ancient Romans when they're like, wrestling naked in the Colosseum. There has never been a sport in the history of mankind where you could win every single game you play and you don't even get a chance to play for a championship.
Yeah,
that is a fundamental absurdity.
Yeah.
And that is college football. That was college football.
Yeah.
And we're moving away from that, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Matt, if you I know Duff will be there. I hope Rob next year. We don't know all the dates, I don't think, for SEC schedule, but if you can make your way to Lee County, Alabama for Auburn LSU, you will be treated like royalty, my brother.
Yeah.
Well, I guess after Bama is burning, I'm sure the Auburn fans are pretty fond of
You will be.
You think?
What do they say? The enemy of your enemy is your friend.
Yeah.
No, Matt will come in. Hail ye Caesar.
It's a different question. Do you bring T-Bob Unchained? I mean, he's a wild man.
All I know, Matt, is I made some chicken and shrimp and gumbo on Doug's deck, and let me tell you, that case of Heineken evaporated so quickly you've never seen a beer go quicker.
I love I love going down to Jordan Hare. Like I said, the LSU Auburn game is my favorite one.
Yeah.
It's my favorite LSU rivalry. So,
Still too soon to talk about the earthquake game, man. I'm sorry.
Well, I was in the stadium, but I was 6 years old, so I don't remember it. But I am excited for that game to come back next season. And the Bama's burning thing is, I just always look at what I do and I realize you got to entertain. I mean, it's like we're talking about sports. Like, we can have fun, and the point that whole thing was, and I'm very careful to reiterate it over and over, was I never said that Alabama was going to be bad. It's just that the air of invincibility around them is gone as soon as Nick Saban walked out the door. And I still believe that. Look, they've had a very strong season. I think Ty Simpson's play. If I'm not a Heisman voter, if I was, I would be voting for him right now with three weeks to go. Yeah. But man, you look at Bama, they had a sweat game against Missouri. They needed a couple of red zone turnovers to beat Vanderbilt. They needed that 99-yard pick six against Tennessee to give them separation there. Point is, they're vulnerable, and I wouldn't even be surprised if Oklahoma clipped them this weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if Auburn beat them. But that's to dovetail this whole conversation, that's the great part about it is I think the ceiling has lowered, the floor has raised. We have compressed the teams in college football closer to one another, and it feels more competitive and more wide open every weekend, which is a fun place to be.
And as an LSU,
and you know what, the great Nick Saban, it's unprovable. It's unlikely that Saban could dominate, or any coach, because of the disruption of the second and third rotation due to the portal and NIL.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if y'all have time, but Doug, I disagree with you on that. Like, I know that was a feeling that Bama fans had. I think what made Nick great, I'll be quick. The thing that made Nick the greatest ever is that in the most volatile era, going from roster hard caps at 25 to NIL and transfer portal and rev share and everything, like hurry up. Do y'all remember when Nick Saban was at SEC Media Days bemoaning hurry up, no huddle, and how unsafe unsafe it was? And then he goes and hires Lane Kiffin and wins championships doing a hurry. Like, nobody. You're right. Nobody adapted.
You make a good case.
It's why he's the greatest of all time.
Well, I do have to say, Alabama burning, for every one of us LSU fans and the psychological abuse we went through for 16 years watching them win our national championship. I'm telling you, Matt said every word that we were thinking and every one of those Alabama bourbons.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
Matt, thank you so much for joining us, man. We got to do this more often. This is fantastic, and I love the studio at the house. That is thinking ahead.
This is in my office,
Okay.
up at work. So I do have one at the house too. So I'm always prepared, guys.
Okay.
Ring lights and cameras and mics everywhere. We're
Let
Hey,
people
Matt.
know how they can follow you and keep up with all your great work as well, because I know it's out there on Twitter. You are the nonstop paper.
Yeah, if you like, well, my handle is on the screen right there, and if you can spell my last name with all the vowels, you can find me. I'm on every platform at Matt Moscona. But do Afternoon Drive 3 to 6 Central on ESPN stations throughout Louisiana. I host Locked On LSU podcast as well, which I'm very proud of. So if you're on your favorite podcast app, you'd subscribe to Locked On LSU. That'd be great. And then, of course, our written content's over at LouisianaSports.net, the publisher at that site, and we're very proud of it. No paywalls, everything's totally free, and we're very proud of our work there.
And Matt, we got to get back to Crescent City Steaks. You, me, Chuck, and Graff, and have another run at those T-bones.
Would love to, man. I think we did that around February, right? Around that time.
It was cold a couple of years ago.
You just call me, man. I'll pop down.
You got it.
Matt, all the best to you, brother.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, guys.
De Caloris, take care, man. What a champ, man. To go to
He is a talent.
He's the
guys.
best we
He's a
got.
talent.
He's the best
Absolutely.
we got at LSU.
champ to champ. The Hook'em Hut is
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
All right, there's a game this weekend being
Speaking of
played.
T-bones,
Yeah, between hey, how does it Bevo T-bone? Nobody eats those Longhorns. Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America, from the mobile studio. There's a game in Athens this weekend. The Horns and the Dogs. Talk about it. How you doing?
Boy, it's great to see you guys. And you know, when I just tuned in a few minutes ago, all I heard was naked wrestlers, and I was wondering what the hell y'all were talking about. I thought maybe I thought maybe I got the wrong show.
the Greco-Roman wrestling show.
Exactly.
Hey,
but,
Ken.
yeah.
Ken, don't peak early, man. I know you're thinking about November 28th. There's a little game somewhere in Texas.
Oh, I know. Well, I'm down here in Austin right now, and I'm about a mile from the stadium and can see the stadium. So I'll be there for sure. But let's talk about this Georgia game real quick. A couple different things. Now, think about this, guys. There has never been a team in the CFP that has started the season number one, dropped all the way out, has crawled their way all the way back, and is now number 10 in the CFP. Not a one.
Never.
And so, I mean, Texas had, after that debacle at Florida, okay, Brendan, I'm still all hail to Brendan, you know, has come back strong. They've won every game. Arch, you know, who was first the biggest thing that ever happened to college football, then became the biggest bust, according to some people, has now had his 4 greatest games of his career, including last week against Vandy right here in Austin, where he threw for 389 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and had a quarterback rating of 189.2. So here Texas is going to go into Athens. They've never played there before, never. And, you know, I understand that Georgia's a 6-point favorite. They should be. So I don't know. I just don't know how this game is going to go. I mean, Georgia definitely has the edge for sure. But, you know, this would be the game that could be the Vince Young game for Arch. If he could come out and just blow it out, throw it around, not get sacked, because you know the Georgia defense is going to come after him every stinking play. You know, this could make things very interesting. On the other hand, you know, I see the key to this game is this. And, of course, I've watched Georgia every game this season, just like I watched Texas. And I've just been fascinated by the fact that a team like Georgia, which is so good, can fall behind and then miraculously find a way to pull it out in the second half all the time. Of course, not against Alabama. But, you know, and, you know, that's the thing. You know, Georgia finds a way to win in the late second half. Texas has a propensity over the last 2 years to give up big leads in the second half. So I think that's going to be the real key to this game. If Texas can somehow eke their way ahead by hook and by crook, and then hold on to the lead and keep it in Athens. I think they're a lock for the CFP no matter what happens at A&M. But I thought it was funny the other day, and then I'll shut up. But ESPN had a crawl about the percentage of Texas at A&M who was going to win, and it gave A&M only a 40% chance of winning. And I was like, am I reading the right thing? I mean, I think it's going to be a 50-50 game at best. I think Texas has a good chance at home. But I mean, A&M is playing the best lights out football that I've seen in 15 years.
Yeah. Doug.
This is, I guess, a left-handed or backhanded compliment to both Georgia and Alabama. And we'll get quickly to the Longhorns, since that's Ken is the aficionado on the Longhorns. But the Alabama and Georgia in most games have gotten comfortable with living dangerously.
Mm-hmm.
They don't freak out when they get behind, or in the case of Alabama, my goodness, South Carolina and a couple of other games were very losable. And so what's going to be interesting down the home stretch here, because there are some tough games, including Alabama, Oklahoma this Saturday. I think Alabama wins that 10 or so, but Oklahoma can cause you problems defensively.
Yes, they can.
And we'll see if Mateer can get back to his form from a year ago. But the question's going to be, have they been living dangerously and they're finally going to run into a buzzsaw and it catches up with them? Or did the close games, which you didn't have prior to this new model of football, do the close games instead prepare Georgia and Alabama and maybe one or two others for the playoff run, because those are much more likely to be close games, especially when you get deep into it.
Great point.
Meanwhile, Texas A&M does not. Auburn, ironically, is the only team that really gave A&M a close game.
So because of that defense.
Wow, that's a great point. That's a great point. And one other thing that I wanted to bring up, because I know our time is kind of short here this morning, but I read a very interesting story this week, and I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but who was one of Arch Manning's best buddies since middle school? That would be Ty Simpson. Okay, so in this off week, in this bye week for Texas, Ty and Arch have been on the phone, and Ty has been generous enough to share some of his ideas about how Alabama beat Georgia. So it just goes to show you, man, keep those friends in elementary school and middle school and high school, because you never know where you're going to pop up again. And so I think that's also kind of an interesting kind of color on this game, that Ty's been giving Arch a few tips, and we'll see if they pay off.
Well, I'm going to use a term to describe Georgia football. And that term, that word, and this is a very erudite group of men here, scholars, wordsmiths. Georgia is crepuscular. You know what crepuscular means? That means they're most active before dawn and most active at dusk. And I saw that when I was at the zoo yesterday with my daughter on describing one of the animals there. But they're great early, that first quarter. Then they kind of disappear, but they can close. My friend Jeff Boone, love this guy, Boone Dog. And he says Georgia knows how to close like nobody except against Alabama. They have some kind of fear. I don't know what
There's
it is.
a mental block there. Kirby said, Rob, to your point, Kirby said, we're a hard dog to kill. It seems to apply to Georgia.
Not for Bevo. I've seen Bevo almost take him out.
Yeah.
In New Orleans. Hey, by the way, Rob, I saw a crepuscular 10-point buck who knew it was 2 weeks before deer season in my stand in Marksville, unfortunately. Yeah. Hey, I got a question for you, Ken. So I think the two biggest Jekyll and Hyde teams in the SEC this year, by far, are Texas and Georgia. It's like Forrest Gump, the great Alabama punt returner, said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. I have no idea which Texas shows up or which Georgia shows up. My question to you, my friend from out west, if the best Texas team shows up and the best Georgia team shows up, with the understanding it is between the hedges, how do you see that game going if the best of both show up?
Okay, what a great Man, you've been thinking a lot there, Frank. You know.
Hey, and me and Doug are not just here for window treatment, for dressing. You know?
That is such a great question, and I know exactly how I'm going to answer that because it's like every other game. First of all, Georgia has the advantage for sure because they're playing at home. Okay, there's no question about that. But there's a couple of different things that things always come down to, and then I'm going to give you what could give Texas an advantage. Okay, first of all, it all comes down to turnovers and special teams. Okay, so turnovers and special teams. Texas has not turned the ball over very much this year, which is just amazing. And Arch has been great with the ball. And so that's also something that, again, right after in September, everybody thought he was done for the rest of his life. And he's been really being very, very careful with the ball. However, on special teams, there's a guy over here in Austin named Ryan Niblett who's come out of nowhere and has returned 2 punts for touchdowns, one against Oklahoma and one against Mississippi State. And he's also returned punts against some other long punts against some other teams too. This guy was a raw talent last year, and they couldn't find really a place to put him. They tried him at running back, they tried him at wide receiver, but they're just too loaded everywhere. And so they found his place for him at special teams. And I know you guys remember his 75-yard punt return against Oklahoma that just literally blew that game open and took the wind out of the Sooners. Yeah. And so, I think it's going to. I think Georgia has the advantage, best on best. But, again, it's those intangibles, special teams, and turnovers. And, of course, whatever the refs are going to call this game, it'll be very interesting.
Here's an interesting storyline. Georgia's defensive front, not like they have been in years past. They don't have the depth. Of course, who really does? And then Texas's offensive line was abysmal early on, but they've gotten better as the season goes along. So it's kind of the irresistible force versus the immovable object. It's not really there. There's a weakness on both sides, and it's on the line of scrimmage. That's highly unusual in the Southeastern Conference.
And Arch settling in is the big point. When his first couple of games, look, you can't help but be a little nervous. I don't care what your pedigree is.
Of course.
Your first 2 or 3 or 4 games, but he has now settled in to where he is playing great football. And you have to do that on the road in the SEC. You have to have great quarterback play. And, the funny thing about Arch is he's nimble enough to get you those 10 yards on third and 8 if he's got to get out of the pocket. And that's also very critical. Believe me, I know from a defense that's been trying to stop running quarterbacks. So I think if Texas goes in and wins at Athens, I think it's going to be not only Arch's arms, but it's going to be his legs as well, picking up 2 or 3 critical third downs to keep drives going either in the red zone or to keep that field from being flipped and letting Kirby's defense play on that side of the 50.
Well, and the other thing is, like I said, guys, the Texas line has to keep him clean. I mean, because he cannot be. I mean, you've seen how Texas's losses are all because these defenses, all came after Arch and sacked the living daylights out of him. And then, it's 3rd and 30, and nobody can operate in that environment very well. And so anyway, I think it's going to be very interesting. I don't know how I'm going to wait around till 6:30 on Saturday night. I wish this was like a 2:30 kick, but I'll try to find something to do between now and then. But this is the games. I heard y'all talking prior, and great guests and this great show as always, Rob. But you're right. This is what it all boils down to, and this is why Texas and Oklahoma came to the SEC to play games like this. And I thought was very interesting. And of course, I don't know if this would ever happen. And of course, there's a lot of football left to be played, as my friend Joe likes to say. But listen, one of the CFP projections was, and I thought this was so crazy, if it was Texas in a play-in game at Texas Tech in Lubbock.
Oh, wow.
Now that would be crazy. And then they would play A&M again in the Final Four. That would just be a dream come true. I mean, if the CFP and the committee should love that.
That would be the Southwest Conference bracket.
Exactly. I thought, wow, that would be so cool. And for Texas having to go to Tech to play in Lubbock, which is such a crazy place to play. Of course, now they can't throw tortillas anymore, supposedly.
I saw that.
Yeah. So the tortilla throwing is over, but still, that is a wild place to play. So the fact that Texas, the Tech is ranked above Texas and would have to go on the road and then maybe play A&M, that would just be that's what the CFP is all about.
Don't worry about the tortilla thing, because they still ring the damn cowbells when you break the huddle when you're not supposed to. So I think there'll be some tortillas flying.
Yeah. Doug,
Ken, you're such a lively personality, Ken. You need to calm yourself down. I'm telling you,
it's this Rudy's coffee. It's really good.
That's right.
No, don't go changing, Ken. You're awesome. We had, first of all, a year ago, and I know this is Georgia week, and I'm not worried the least about Sarkisian or Arch Manning or those guys looking ahead, but I'm a fan. I can look ahead because I don't know when you're going to be back on. Rob, you got to have Ken back on the big rivalry week. But
he is always when he can do it.
Absolutely. But, a year ago, Ohio State fans were not feeling too good the day of and day after the rivalry game with Michigan, but all they had to do was wait a month and they felt pretty damn good. The same thing could happen. Texas could knock off A&M in that type of rivalry game, and that would not by no means diminish A&M. It might actually help A&M find what they need to psychologically to go knock it down and bring home the hardware. But we had the great Mac Browne on. I bet you have probably lifted a glass. We love him too. I bet you've lifted a glass with Mac Browne once or twice in your
Yes, I have. I sure have.
Listen, he told.
Yeah.
And I asked him about that. He said, we were riding high, and that was back when you cannot afford to not be undefeated usually to make it into the BCS title game.
Correct.
Ask Auburn. And so he said the week heading into the week of the big Texas A&M rivalry game, he got a call from none other than Bill Parcells, his friend, who said, "You've blown it, man. You have blown it. A&M is going to kick your ass, and y'all are eating all this rat poison about how great you are." And that's when the Nick Saban rat poison line originated, it would seem. I don't want to take away from Saban. Maybe Saban thinks he originated. It doesn't matter. But Mac Browne had his manager go put that Parcells quote on every player's locker the week of A&M. Sure enough, A&M led at the half, you'll remember, and the Longhorns came back and won that game. And if they don't win it, I don't know if they're still in the big game or not, but what a magical year that was.
Yeah, I was there for every single second of the A&M game, the Rose Bowl, everything. And you're right. And here we go. Texas has been in the CFP the last 2 years. They came back so mightily this year, which I think is just a real credit to Sark, because, the team did not give up. And I think that's really great. And I just got to mention one more thing, because I know we're running short on time, but I read another interesting story. See, I really like to do my research on these things. I love to send Rob. I really love to send Rob my show notes so he sees that I actually do my homework. But do you know that the recruitment of Arch Manning came down to Georgia and Texas? Came down to Georgia and Texas. And one of the things that pushed Arch over the edge over here to Austin, Texas, USA, was his host for the weekend, which was then some walk-on nobody had ever heard of named Michael Taff. Well, now Michael Taff is an All-American, and he's been hurt, but he's going to play this weekend. So once again, man, I go back to what I said at the beginning. Relationships are everything in this world, and it's just so many different things that are coming together on this field in Athens on Saturday, and I think it's going to be a hell of a game.
Yeah, saw Michael Taff at SEC Media Days with the tie he had on with the names of all the young children lost in those Texas floods. That's a good kid. I say kid. I've got kids his age, and you do too. All right, we got to ask you this: looking at the big picture of the SEC. There's 5 or 6 teams possibly could make the playoffs. the rest of the country, the Big Ten, you don't see a lot of ranked on ranked teams playing each other. And so we saw Indiana go to the mat last week against a deflated, we thought, Penn State team. Who is the biggest threat, which conference, to the SEC getting 5 spots this year?
Wow. Boy, that's hard to say. It's sure not the Big 12. So we can cross them out because I cover the Big 12 a lot too.
While Ken's thinking, let him think. We could have 7 teams, boys, because Vanderbilt is only 2 slots out, and this is the numbers game. And let me tell you, that is not out of the realm of possibility the way that the schedule opens up. I'm telling you, we could have 7 teams in this thing.
Isn't the answer, Rob, or at least one answer, if you get upsets in some of the conference championship games, that takes a spot from an SEC team?
Yeah. Ken, I know you've
possibly
been thinking deeply on this one, but I'm just curious. It's wide open.
And we need to also, think about, because, remember, I vote on the All-American Committee for football writers. Okay. And we need to also think, too, about getting some of the, we need to get another conference, another school in there, like a Conference USA, or somebody needs to be able to get in like a last slot. Because, there's a lot of good play going on in some of these smaller conferences. And, I know they don't play the same schedule and all that kind of stuff. But I think if you really want to be representative of college football, that you should, that the committee should consider that. And I know they're always looking for that one team, that Cinderella story in the smaller schools. And, of course, they may not do very well. But that's just always one of my
go to 16
wishes.
Teams. 16 teams solves it.
Let's just go to 24. Yeah. Hell, just get it over with.
All right, Ken, look, I've got to wrap up. Going to bring in Brad Bellamy from Landers here, but let me just say this: we need to get 7-Eleven to be your sponsor, Southland Corporation. We don't have them in Memphis.
They're based in Dallas. Hell, I can go talk to them.
All right, let's make Slurpees for everyone. All right. Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America, along with Doug Dean, 2 of the best guys I know that take care of their moms like very few people I've ever known in my life, along with Michael Jordan. But we'll do it again next week if you can join us one day. That schedule in the mornings. Love having you on. Keep being Ken Capps, all right?
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. All right, now let's get Brad Bellamy in here. Brad, we've been talking a lot of college football, Texas, Georgia. It's a big game. Got to go back. Got to get – you're going to a game, you got to have a safe vehicle. That Landers Ford is the place to go. I tell everybody, ask for Brad Bellamy, general manager. Quit worrying about buying a car, or a truck, or SUV. But what's happening out there? Then let's talk some football in the last 10 minutes.
That sounds great, Rob. Good afternoon or good morning, everybody. Glad to be on with you guys. So we just launched 0% for 60 on Explorer as well as Escape and Transit. We already had 0 for 60 on F-150, so that's the big Black Friday savings event. So all that stuff launched yesterday. So really excited about those programs, guys. We haven't seen a 0% on Explorer in forever. We haven't seen a 0% at 60 months on F-150 in forever. So to be able to get 0 for 60, we can actually extend that to 0 for 66. We also got no payments for 90 days, 0 for 72 on our EVs. On the service side, we have a $20 rebate from Ford on all works packages. So that's a huge savings back there. It's about a 20% off. And then we also have $150 that just started on a set of 4 tires. So a couple of programs they were going to push off another week. They all launched yesterday. So really excited about what we have to offer, guys. Reminder for service customers, we'll meet you where you want to be met. We can come get your car. We can come to you, especially we're doing some recalls with our mobile service vans, or you can bring it here and enjoy our TVs, our coffee, our presence. But we got some great things happening here. We got some big momentum. We got a lot of appointments today. So come on out and see us. We'll be here, every day, 8 to 7 in sales, 7 to 6 in service. And we're happy to take care of you guys. And also just a reminder for folks listening to the show, extra $500 off. You mentioned you heard it here on SEC Sidelines. You buy a new or used car. So go ahead, Rob.
No, I was going to say, if you're a YouTuber like me and you have no access to college football, why not go to Landers Ford, watch TV, and buy a new car, truck, or SUV? It's a pretty simple solution. Huh? 1 + 1 = 3, huh?
That's right. That's right. We'll even have popcorn. We'll take care of you guys. So
Right.
Come on out. I wish we could offer beer, but unfortunately, beer and vehicles, especially on
No.
test drive, so we can't do that here. But I was listening to you guys talk a little bit ago just about what all is going on. One thing that we have avoided to this point in the SEC that we didn't avoid last year is just utter chaos in a bunch of games where the teams we didn't expect to win won. We got 2 weeks left. We're getting down to the wire, but Vandy, if Vandy wins out, they're in. I don't see a scenario that doesn't happen because Texas is more than likely going to lose another game. I don't see a 3-loss SEC team getting in right now. I think that would be a big stretch with how well some of the other conferences have done just from a wins and losses standpoint. We saw it happen last year, and I don't see that happening in this year's scenario. But you got the opportunity for Vandy to be 2 losses, Ole Miss to be sitting at 1, Georgia to be sitting at 1, Alabama to be sitting at 1, and A&M undefeated. I don't see a scenario where those 5 teams don't get in if that's where they're sitting.
Brad, I love your opinions, Brad. You obviously study this stuff, but who's the closest to the potential of it? I think maybe if Texas lost a close one, maybe even a controversial. The SEC referees have been happy to give us controversy. Why would that stop now? But they lose a close one, but then they run the table, beating a highly ranked A&M. Is Texas at least on the bubble, do you think?
If Vandy loses to Tennessee, yes. But I think you're outside of controlling your own destiny at that point. The better question to me is what happens, all right, so Georgia loses to Texas this weekend. Texas then loses to Texas A&M. I think that probably knocks Texas still out, and Georgia probably squeaks in. You got some different, scenarios that could play out.
But
Vandy losing one of these 2 games, but I think at this point, as long as Ole Miss wins one of the next 2 games, they're in. I don't see them getting knocked out.
But if Texas beats A&M, here's the thing, Brad. If Texas beats A&M, they're in. A&M's going to stay in. And what if Crimson and Cream beats Crimson and White this week? Alabama's going to still be in with only 1 SEC loss. But I'm telling you, we got a shot at 7 teams getting into this damn thing from the SEC. I'm just telling you. It's a long shot, but it's possible.
Somebody just put on the chat cigars. I think they might be offering you some cigars with some extra magic dust in there for you to
Just, hey, like the movie Casino, at least give me that it's possible. At least give me that.
I think it's possible. Yeah.
I mean, but you got to have a lot of upsets in other conferences for that to happen.
But I agree with that. I'm just saying the way it shakes out in this conference, you could have 7 teams that are eligible depending on what happens in the conference championship games in other places.
Yeah, we got to wrap it up.
Notre Dame has to lose, I think, for that scenario to happen. You got to knock them out of one of the spots. I think the ACC's done a great job of knocking themselves out of 2 bids. The Big 12, the Big 12, you're probably looking at 1 team or 2, depending on how BYU and Texas Tech go. But, does BYU make it? If they lose to Texas Tech twice, neither game's close, does BYU get in the playoff?
That's right. Look, we ran out of time, but I'm going to get someone on from Texas Tech for next week. We're going to talk with, I've got a name from our good friend Heath Klein, producer Chuck Oliver Show, but Brad Bellamy, Landers Ford, thank you so much. Frank, Doug, everybody, we got to wrap it up. Just remember, Landers Ford open every day of the week except Sunday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., right down the street from our good friends at Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the square in Collierville. Rumble Boxing, how you fight is how you live, and hempforpros.com. If you have trouble sleeping, aches and pains, go to hempforpros.com. It absolutely works. Hey, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Find ways to win. Find ways to help people out. You look at Landers Ford, I promise you, you will not find a better corporate partner. What they do in this community, it's off the charts. I don't care if you live on Mars, buy a vehicle from Landers. It's well worth it. Thanks, everybody, for executive producer Brendan Martin, Rob Browne. Stay tuned to this channel. Goal to Go is coming up right after this. See ya.
Pork chops is what's for dinner. Pork chops.